Well, I don't see Hugh.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome.
Morning. Morning.
Or morning. Yeah, I'm used to saying afternoon. Maybe.
Oh, this gonna be rough.
Yeah, it could be. All right. Welcome anyway, whether you're with us or you're listening to us online. We'll get ourselves woke up here in a minute. This is the Dawson County Board of Commissioners and Long Range Planning Committee joint meeting. And today is November 17th, 2021, and we appreciate everyone being with us. This is going to be more of like an open dialogue between the Board of Commissioners as well as our Long Range Planning Committee. And I think we have one person who's signed up for public comment. We'll hear from her as well in just a little while. But first off, we'll start out with a roll call. And as you can see, Commissioner Gaines is not with us here today. Ms. Terry, how many committee members do you have present? Okay, well, hopefully they'll come on in and be with us here in just a few minutes as we move forward into this meeting. Would I ask everyone to please stand for a brief invocation and a pledge? Would bow your heads, please. Our dear gracious Heavenly Father, we thank you for this another day and for the blessings of life. We look forward to the opportunity to discuss the business of this community and how we can make improvements there. Anything that we accomplish will give you the honor and glory in Christ's name. We do ask and pray. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated. All right, we move on to announcements. I will say that this is GIS Day. So, and I probably should have got them candy, but they brought us candy. So let's remember all of our GIS people who work throughout and help with all the different things that are associated with that. And we move on down to the approval of the agenda. I don't have any changes to the agenda. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Fawcett, seconded by Commissioner Satterfield. Discussion. Hearing none, please vote. And the agenda is approved 3-0. We move down to the public comment. Ms. Helen, you have signed up for public comment. Come on up. Yep. You had also made a request for some extra time beyond our 3-minute limit. And how much time are you requesting? Okay, board good with that?
Yes.
All right, go ahead.
Press the button on the speaker. Speak. Yes, ma'am.
There you go.
All right, I came today because I'm concerned. I live in the southwest corner of Dawson County, and we've had some recent changes.
What's your address?
9304 Kelly Bridge Road.
Okay.
We've had some recent big changes there with the Bolair estate having been auctioned off just last Wednesday. And so we've had traditionally a very small, close-knit community there, rural homesteads and small farms and some large farms. And we wish to preserve that. I feel that I can speak on behalf of the majority of my neighbors and friends there. We all want to protect our lifestyle, which we enjoy an agrarian type lifestyle, and we've chosen that. I know I moved here back in 1990 and purchased that property. I have 20 acres over there, and I've really, really enjoyed working that land. I've raised horses. We have some chickens and ducks. We, really, really embrace a life with nature. And I know that I came to Dawson County because I was amazed at how much of that we have here in our county. Beautiful natural resources. We have both the Amicalola and the Etowah River's flowing through here. Lots of really nice farmland, and I hope that we can maintain a maximum of that. I think all of us have noticed the changes that we've, had, especially in the past 2 years. We see how quickly supply chains can be broken down for whatever reasons. So I think it's very important as we go forward to incorporate into maintaining rural areas and farms, but also incorporating into our areas where we may have some higher density and some suburban type homes. Thoughts that have occurred to me are we could integrate green spaces in there dedicated for community gardens and work with developers that would be open to doing this. Also, I prefer, developers that can work with the existing landscape. But we do have those that come in and just, plow every tree down, and then they're required to plant back trees. Why not put some fruit trees in there so that we can, help sustain ourselves? We may have some rough times coming ahead. There's lots of people beside myself that, see these things coming down the pike. So I think that's wise to have as much resources that we can provide ourselves with locally here, as far as food wise. I know we all think food comes from the grocery store, but it doesn't.
No, I don't. I don't.
We have to grow it. So leaving larger tracts of acreage and encouraging people that want a homestead where they might raise a few animals, I believe it's all to the benefit of us all down the pike. So I guess that's all I'll say about that. The other thing that I've had a chance to do is to give everybody a handout of some useful websites that I have had a chance to do some research on. I cared for my elderly mother for several years and was homebound. So in that time, I spent just looking at things, So these are some of the better sites I've found. Children's Health Defense.org is Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s website. He's got a lot of good information. He's a very credible person. I believe all these people that I've put down are Arthur Furstenberg, has done a lot of research into the dangers of wireless radiation in 5G, and I actually purchased his book and read it, The Invisible Rainbow. It's worthwhile. Solari.com, Catherine Austin Fitz, former Undersecretary of Bush the First, cabinet and HUD member. She was in charge of HUD. She's got an incredible section there of the missing money that it's a must read for everybody. The day before the towers were brought down, I remember Donald Rumsfeld getting on and saying, we're missing $2 trillion from the Pentagon and we just don't know where it went. Well, the next day we had 9/11. And so Catherine Austin Fitz, who is also a brilliant, at Wall Street, she thought, this is crazy. How do you misplace $2 trillion? Somebody knows where that money went. It went somewhere. So she actually looked into it and she found 6 trillion missing. So she wrote a paper on this, and Dr. Mark Skidmore, who's the professor of economics from Michigan State University, read that somewhere and thought, oh, she's wrong. I'm going to prove her wrong. So he took his graduating class that year and they requested the FOIA documents. They all went through. They found even more. They got it up to around $26 trillion. So that one, real interesting. USA Watchdog has a lot of current topics and good interviews. Corbett Report, all of these. CSPOA is Sheriff Richard Mack, who's the Constitutional Sheriff and Peace Officers Association. Our own Jeff Johnson has actually attended one of his seminars. I would like to see if we could get Sheriff Mack to come here. He is currently going around the nation and doing seminars for our law enforcement. They are able to count that for their hours, their continuing hours. So I want to talk to Jeff, and maybe some of y'all, you have a brochure of his, maybe some of y'all can help me make that happen. Yeah, and down the line. So the other thing that I did some research on too was the history of the Federal Reserve. This book is written by G. Edward Griffin, The Creature from Jekyll Island. Highly recommended if anybody hasn't read it. If you don't have time to read one that's this big, at Corbett Report, under the best of the Corbett Report or the documentaries, is a tutorial on the Federal Reserve. So these are things that I found interesting, and I just wanted to share them with you today. And I hope you'll take time to look into some of this. And all of us have a shared interest to keep Dawson County the best county. And the other thing I'll just briefly touch on too is the traffic. People are driving so fast and so distracted today up and down our country road, 2-lane, curvy. We had a motorcycle, a crotch rocket fly, had to be 60, 70 miles an hour. Up one way, turn around, come back down the other. Also, and I see you have it on your agenda about 53. We went last Sunday over to the mall, and the traffic headed towards there was backed up bumper to bumper all the way to the bird storage. Thankfully, we were going the other way, and we were like, oh my gosh, those poor people are going to be sitting there for the next 45 minutes at least. So I'm sure you're aware of these things, and I thank you for listening to me, and that's all.
Thank you, ma'am.
Did I hit my limit?
Just under 8 minutes.
Good job.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. All right, we'll move on into the new business. First up, we're going to be Long Range Planning Committee report on the 2021 committee activities. Ms. Terry, you're going to talk about that, and a reminder about this is going to be interactive. So if you have questions or anyone else in the Long Range Planning Committee has comments, please feel free to join in.
Thank you. Good morning. First of all, I want to say thank you to this group of elected officials for having the foresight to know that there's a big picture that has to fit into the short range planning. And we as a committee take our tasks seriously, and we educate. We can't plan in a vacuum. So we are always in search of statistics and data, development trends and things like that. So I would like to also take a moment and recognize our committee. Unfortunately, I have visions of Joe sitting in the room we always meet in over there, wondering where the rest of us are. But and Jane was victim to that too. But Joe Brewer, who's not here, Jane Graves, we all know Jane, Cal Miller, Gary Prashant, and Hugh Stowers has some health issues, so
He's right
he's
there.
there.
He's here.
Oh, you're there. Well, come on up and sit up front. Come sit up front, you, so you can hear better and they can hear you.
He snuck in the back.
And also attending here today is Steve Pollock. If you want to just stand for a minute, he's going to be on your agenda tomorrow for consideration to join our committee.
Yes.
Great.
Yes, yes, yes.
I also at this time would like to say a big thank you to both the past and current planning staff. They are our source of much wisdom and information, and their cooperation allows us to do what we do. So thank you. Well, as far as our work product 20 and 21, we had COVID. And our committee is not conducive to a Zoom meeting. So we elected during those really intense COVID exposure times to just not meet. But we did manage to get a lot done when we did meet, and we've been more active, of course, this year. A lot of what we've done is document review, revision, and development. The comp plan, we were on fast forward to look at future land use and the character areas. And then that kind of got a little bit of a backseat for a number of reasons, but that's going to be an ongoing thing. And when Sharon gives us the green light, we'll start working on that in a lot more sincerity on that. The 453 guidelines, well, that's probably going to talk about that a lot today. We worked quite a bit on that. We spent a tremendous amount of time on that. And the consultants presented a kind of a final document and presented it to you all. And something happened on the way to the forum. It didn't move along. We had thought it would, but we understand that that's something y'all want to take a closer look at. And we hope that maybe we can go ahead and move forward. The snag seemed to be 53. So maybe if we can move forward with 400 and then spend more time and deal with some of the issues with the corridor of 53, and maybe.
Terry, did you see that meeting when this was presented? Did you see?
I watched the whole
Did you see
thing.
the public comment?
I did indeed.
Okay, that's kind of why it got stalled.
I know.
It was kind of intense.
It was, yes. And I hated it for Jameson because he had
Me too.
notified the landowners and they were aware of what was going on. Whether they took interest in it or not is another matter. But he was too much of a gentleman to defend himself that evening.
Mhm.
And I hated that for him. But we're going to, and I do believe, Sharon, haven't you either met or are going to meet with those larger landowners?
I have met with one of them. Get it on my calendar.
So,
That's good.
And I would agree with you, Terry, in reference to, I think the 400 overlay is something other that we can go ahead and take a look at,
Mhm.
because I think there wasn't much, if any,
No.
opposition to that whatsoever that I heard during that meeting. And then, yeah, as we move forward, getting a dialogue going and finishing up the 53.
okay, good. And we'll talk about 53 and of course, welcome your comments on it. We also helped form the citizen survey that was done where we tapped into the interest of the citizens and then took a look at the feedback, which was not a whole lot different than the last one that was done. There wasn't really a remarkable change in attitude of the public. And the Georgia Tech growth fiscal impact study was a real interest. I'm sure you all looked at that too. And it kind of gave some association between hard costs of new development and rooftops and the revenue side versus the cost side. And that's something that I think going forward, we know that entry-level housing puts us in the minus category from the standpoint of service delivery and costs. And the higher up the value, the more you actually are able to have some measurement of success with the revenue side for purposes of delivering services.
Comes closer to a wash.
Right. So based upon the data collections of things that we've learned, we want to go into 2022 with some focus from you all on prioritization, because you could head off in a lot of different directions,
Right.
but we're looking to you for that. And before I get into our little laundry list here, please, as committee members, points that I'm not making, take it away, please. Come on. Transportation is it's kind of like the elephant in the room when it comes to where we're going to go, how we're going to fund it. The 50, well, I'll start with 400. We're in kind of in a unique situation in, we've got this interstate heading north and it's expanding, they're building lanes all the way up through Forsyth and interchange improvements. And then you come to a place where there are traffic lights, commercial, and that's our main street. I mean, that's what we have right now in the county as our main street and our commercial tax base. So I think that's something, and we've talked about it in committee, that going out into the future is going to require an element of nurturing and protection. Because if that area becomes a parking lot going north to Lumpkin County, it's going to hurt us, it's going to hurt Lumpkin, Cleveland, all that whole area up there. So there are no bypasses. There are no alternate roads. Lumpkin Campground, doesn't go anywhere to go further north. So that's going to be a real challenge, maybe not for us immediately in this room, but then the 53. Pickens County, Hall County, they're counting on Dawson County's 53 to move. And so that product and goods and people, that's the way they're going to go to get from their county over to the other county, to get to the other county. So one of the things, and it's on the second page, but one of the things under communication, we had recommended this back in, I think, the second year of our existence, to have a calendar item once a year for purposes of getting with Hall, Lumpkin, Forsyth, and Pickens to talk about roads, water resources, and all things that as individual counties, one will impact another. So we would love to see y'all kind of have that as a planning item, if possible, with your staff and you all and the other elected officials, kind of to see where you might be able to share. And when it comes to 4-laning 53 or expanding it, GDOT, you can knock on their door as one county, but if several counties knock on their door and start trying to get on the radar, I think it will have a better impact.
Yeah, and going back to that, talking about 53 and the potential widening of 53, David and I met with the Georgia Department of Transportation 2 weeks ago. Yes, it was on another issue, but at that particular time, it was an opportunity for me to ask them about Highway 53. And so it's going to take more than, like you said, one county making a request for something to happen on 53, because they told us there was absolutely nothing on the radar for widening of Highway 53. So it's probably going to take getting some involvement from some state legislature folks as well, with a little bit more clout than I have or anyone else has locally. And like I say, maybe a multi-county regional, Pickens, Dawson, Forsyth, Hall, who all have, interest in a wider traffic capability on Highway 53. And so that's a great idea. And just wanted to report back to the committee, because you had asked me at that time if I would find out if there was anything on the radar. And to my disappointment, there was nothing on their current radar.
And they plan out way in advance and their funding.
David, you want to add anything to that?
That's I believe you, but that's hard to believe. I mean, with the traffic and the growth and all that.
And that
I
was
can't-
within there. David, you can get in on this because you know more about this than I do, but that was in there. That basically was 10 years, right? So that they had nothing
Oh
in
my
10 years.
10 years.
I think you can see that on the new bridge they put in. It's not built for 4 lanes. It's
Yeah.
built for Two lanes.
Yeah.
You're
So it's
right.
bottleneck.
Yeah, there are several bridges to contend with.
Yeah. But they put all that money in the new bridge. They didn't build it.
You're right.
Even in going back to that, even if they would look at, maybe some turn lane capability to where traffic doesn't completely stop in those areas. Now, they did say, if they were familiar with the much congestion has the the young lady said a while ago that happens at Lumpkin Campground and stuff like that, but didn't offer us up any real solution. They are familiar with that, but didn't offer up anything really solution wise in reference to that at the moment.
Now, that intersection, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I'm just to add to that, they're more interested in, to your point, as far as regional, but regional contribution or local government contribution being that Lumpkin or Dawson County, city and all would put in money, and they would be able to find some money to help support that effort.
And that,
They wanted a participation. They're more interested in participation.
and with that being said, David, you can go a little bit deeper into how that speeds up the process.
Well, as I said, they look more towards, they have different programs that you can utilize that have some funding revenue streams, and they can draw from those, but from a general fund standpoint, they don't have that nest of money. So
Okay, I gotta jump in here. So there's an infrastructure bill. Sorry, there's an infrastructure bill that's just been signed into law. Can the DOT not lobby to get a portion of that? And if not, why not?
Well, again, you go see just like a new money, federal money, we did that with research grants. You don't see what states get it.
Yeah, well,
That's-
obviously, but. if we
That's
don't
way on
do it,
grants. We looked at grants where they said you only could build one fire station. And for which president in there, they built multiple fire stations in the state. So you go, those grants are gonna go, we know where they're going.
Well,
You know.
possibly so, but if you don't ask them, don't lobby, you don't.
Yeah, and that's where I
That's
think,
right.
I think that's where we involve our state legislature people in this as
Mhm.
well, because some of that money will come to Georgia just out of the way they do some of that stuff and come to the state. And so maybe, incorporating people who are representing Dawson and Forsyth and
Lumpkin.
Hall and Lumpkin. I mean, and Pickens all into that because they have different representation. Obviously, you got the Speaker of the House who represents part of us, and as well as, I think Pickens as well. So,
The lobbying comes from
yeah.
basically the grant.
Yeah.
You are our lobbyists.
Yeah.
to go up to the-
So we got to work our way up through that, see if there's not a way to move that forward. And then and you haven't got there yet, but I'll just go ahead and touch on it when it comes to joint funding and stuff like that. That's where things like when we talked about T-Splosh is important because there are some requirements in that you do some stuff with the state. And so, that's something else that, we want to take another run at, obviously, because, whether anyone wants to accept it or not, most of that revenue comes from people who don't live here. Our sales tax base is primarily, a lot of that comes from people who don't live in the county. So that's a great opportunity for us to generate a revenue source that we could combine some of that with state and federal money, hopefully to enhance some of these much needed projects that they may not have on their so-called 10-year plan, but that 10-year plan can be shifted and make it work better for us. Yes, ma'am, I'll let you.
Somebody that doesn't really understand all these complex words. Isn't there some way that we can generate our own income, state of Georgia or locally? Why?
Well, that's where we talk about T-Splosh and things like that right there. There's avenues to make some revenue. And that's what the transportation special purpose tax that we talked about one time before, and we'll look at again going in the future. But yeah, there are ways to do that. But that requires a buy-in it requires a buy-in from the citizenry because they have to vote on those kind of things.
Yeah, they have to support it. The
Yes.
T-Splosh, do you remember we had that and it didn't pass?
Go ahead, Gary.
Yeah, I'd like to talk just a minute, mostly to the public, because most of you guys know what I'm going to say. There is a misunderstanding, and I see it all over North Georgia, particularly over in Pickens County right now, that there is a belief by the general public that the commissions and the city councils can somehow regulate population growth. and they cannot.
Mhm.
There is no mechanism in their quiver of tools to regulate population growth. And at the end of the day, all these problems that we deal with now up here in North Georgia, generally because of rapid population growth. We find ourselves back like we were in 2008. When we built this building was going to be 40% bigger than it is today.
Mhm.
And came the Great Recession, and we redid all our numbers, and we stopped that. Courthouse is supposed to go that way a lot further than it is today. And so the Great Recession of 2008 sort of saved us for a while. And we're coming right back to that place where you can see it every day. You can see the additive numbers of population on our roads, which are basically the same road grid we've had here since the 1930s, with the exception of 400. And so all this is going to start to create friction on the roads. And the only solution is try to build our way out of it, and to try to build our way out of it as rapidly as we can, because you can't turn the tap off. And the other thing that's going on, the other elephant in the room, is a lot of land in our county that was held by families and large landowners is now starting to hit the market. And that land is going to get built out, and it's going to get developed. And these people that sit up here cannot say you cannot do that.
Say that we could restrict it by having larger tracks and within working with our zoning.
Right,
We have
and
some control over. People will come, and we have control as to whether we make it high density or develop it in the manner that our county wants.
no, you don't. I know that's hard for people to accept, but you don't. And people need to understand that, because state law, the only zoning we can do has to be approved by the state law. State law, we can either have no zoning, or we can have some zoning, and the zoning plan that these people put together has to have a stamp of approval to the law by the state of Georgia. The state of Georgia requires them, when they present these plans, to have places for all kinds of different things. If you don't have places for that, you don't get the stamp. You don't get the zone at all. So there's this constant negotiation with the state of Georgia. But the state of Georgia has no authority to close its borders for any reason. Think about it. The only people that have that authority are the federal government. It's the only people who can close or open borders to allow population to grow. But within the states, there is no mechanism to say we have enough. You can't come. And you can fiddle with the zoning a little bit, but not much. We have, in our county, we have a 6, that's still in place, isn't it? 6 is the max family units per acre.
That's correct.
Mhm.
That is a very low number.
6 family units per acre.
That's a very low
That
number.
is not a very low number.
Well, I know, I'm telling you what the law is. You may not like it, you may not agree with it, but that's the facts. So we can go through and tweak our zoning, and we can come up with things to try to do a better job at development. And landowners that own the land always push back. They always push back because they don't like to see their freedom constrained.
Yeah, Georgia is a property right state.
That's right.
And as Gary has stated, we do have a zoning here in this county, obviously, and you do have to have a multitude of options, which if you look at our zoning, if you ever read through our zoning, you'll see that we have a multitude of options, and based on where that is, like, for example, where you live, over there is a rural agricultural area, 5 acres is the zoning for that. Now, so if someone sold a 100-acre tract, let's say, then they could build 20 houses, based on the zoning that's there. And that zoning is in place, and they could just come and they could get a permit from the planning department based on that zoning. Now we have R1, which is 1 per acre. We just did R2 and R3, and a method trying to have less R6 or the RMF was residential multifamily. But Gary's right. You go to some other counties, 6 is a small number in their zoning process, but we're not really worried about other counties. We're worried about here. And so ours currently says, the RMF, which is a 6 per acre. And so, and I don't think there's any desire to go higher than that. And as long as we can keep ourselves within the legal limits of the law, and as he said, there is law. Every time we do an update, it has to go and be approved and sent back. And so,
And I would also like to point
Go
out,
ahead.
if I could,
come back up here to this, to the thing.
The other issue in our county is we have a city which constantly grows its boundaries.
Yes.
And the city can then, once they have that piece of property within their domain, they can authorize much greater than 6.
Yes.
That's through annexation.
It's under state law. That's a state law.
Motorsports Park, how that had 12 properties and it's in
It is legal.
Well, that needs to be changed. I mean, why?
And that has to be done at the state
Well,
level.
you would have to get the state legislature to vote to change that.
Well, then that's what I guess we need to do.
We've tried that.
It's harder
We
to
were
do
totally
than,
unsuccessful.
harder to do than this.
Try again.
So I
And
I
they
would
are,
like for these people to be able to do those things. I would
Yes.
like for them to say, we are
Yes.
going to do this and maintain our county. But I'll tell you, the great elephant in the room is if the population continues to grow, this county over time will look just like Gwinnett and Forsyth
It will.
and Cobb.
I know.
And there is no mechanism at law that will stop that. And so we all need to accept that and start to think about what it is we can do within whatever is given to us legally, which is what our group is trying to do.
And I think that's what we're doing.
Yeah.
That's what I try to do every time I vote.
yeah, and we have to follow the plan. And one thing about it is, and as a citizen, and everybody in here is a citizen of this community, is that, when you have a set of ordinances, and Gary can speak to this because he's sitting in this seat for 8 years,
This
And-
seat right here.
right seat over there for 8 years, and was very well versed on our zoning. I'll have to say, probably the most well versed person I've ever seen sit on this board when it came to zoning. And the thing that we have to look at, and what we don't want to do as we represent you and your tax dollars, is give your money to attorneys when, if you vote down something though that's already in the zoning, then you're going to get sued. And that's a waste of taxpayer money. So it is a balancing act at best to follow along and stay within the rules and the guidelines that have been set up by some by this board, some by previous boards. That's the reason that the comprehensive plan has to be updated at least every 5 years. You'll see that that's done more often than that when it comes to this board. And as we look to find ways to keep the beauty and the scenery and the things that we have in this community, because when we went with the R2, which is 2 per acre, and the R3, which is 3 per acre, before that, as Gary said, you had 1 per acre or you had 6, nothing in between. And so, the goal is to try to figure out how do we balance that to make that what people want. Go ahead,
Now
Gary.
that I've pointed out the elephant in the room that nobody likes to talk about, but it's true and it affects all our lives. The other thing to keep in mind is this county is blessed in the sense that it has 30 or 40% of its land, which is set aside in green already. So we have, unlike Pickens County, for example, which has no national forest and almost no state land, we have a lot of land that is set aside right now that is in green. And so that's one of the real blessings we have as we live up here. That land is not likely to get developed, at least at any time soon. So that's a real benefit for this county because we don't have all that acreage that can be turned into apartment houses and houses.
I just say one more thing.
Yes, ma'am.
The thing that I see is, and when I moved here 30 years ago, I was told that all of the major high density would remain out by the 400 corridor. So I expect that word to be followed, and I hope it will.
And our zoning states that now.
I understand what you're saying, but see, the spot zoning is what's the cancer to create total chaos and eat up all our land. We should have certain areas that are designated for suburban, medium density, higher density over here, apartments maybe by the corridor, and then keep areas of our land that cannot be subject to splitting this up.
Well, and that's the overall goal of the entire comprehensive plan and the future land use map.
That's what the map says.
And that's exactly what we're trying to do. And so, we do that based on, those zoning criteria, but as, Gary said, we got to stay within the law to do that as well.
And
Yeah.
some of that you're speaking of is in the city.
Oh, yeah.
And, we get, I don't know if I'll just have to say the word blamed for some high density that we had absolutely nothing to do with. And it grieves me too. I'll just tell you, it grieves me too. But then people, they'll annex into the city, and there's really very little we can do about that. And they do that because they avoid impact fees, and there is higher density, and that translates into more money for them. So some of that city. I'm not blaming all of it, but some of that city.
Back to this other issue though that Terry's talking about is one of the things that the citizens, we all have. to
Gary, come back
understand
up.
is
Gary,
we're-
come back up. We got people
We're
listening.
gonna-
Got people listening. It's easier for them to
Oh,
hear.
I'm sorry.
Oh,
If,
wow.
if we're going to live in a place that sort of functions, and we know this population growth, and the only thing that'll stop this burst of population is another Great Depression or a world war. How many people want that?
Mhm.
But if you just assume that what we're seeing, the trend that we're seeing today in these mountain communities in North Georgia continues, the population is going to continue to grow. And the road grid will drown. I can remember being back in Cobb County in the 80s when Cobb was bursting, just like these northern counties are. And they really didn't get on their roads fast enough. And before long, it was a parking lot. The whole of Cobb County just almost ceased to function, and it took them 15 years to build their way out of it. And now they have a reasonable road grid. So the best things we can do as citizens is, one, get out and support, if we're going to offer this T-Splost again, to try to fund these kind of buildings, and to have us a plan and work with the state, see if we can, because it's the state right now that is the big plug for us. It's these state roads. It's not our county roads, it's the state roads. And those are, as Terry points out, that's one of the things we really need to function, all of us, and work on to try to figure out how can we get the state and our own money to build our way out of what's coming as a huge traffic jam. Thank you.
And it's not even on their radar. Not on their radar.
Yep. Go ahead, Terry.
Thank you. Just a little quick other couple comments on 53. We know, and in fact, Devin, GIS Day, go GIS, has generated some maps, and one of them was the 53 corridor. And then she highlighted some of the larger tracks that that's set on both sides of those. A lot of stuff's landlocked right now, but it's not going to remain landlocked. They'll be, putting packages together to get people to the 53 access. And right now, one of the other governing points of not being able to do certain densities is the sewer. There are no sewers. So, the footprint has to be larger. And if we can think about 53 and if you think about all the land off to each side, if that would remain quote unquote unsewered, it would give us the ability to actually maybe not have a transportation crisis as bad as what it could be, because you'd have a lower density in those areas. So that's something I think is worthy of study. Because once the sewers appear, then you've got apartments and condos and small footprint homes and traffic. So that's something we're going to be looking at as well. And then anything else we need to talk about it in your, as far as y'all are concerned on the immediate transportation items?
No, I think one thing on a lot of zoning, if, you know, people watch zonings that's come before us. I know Chris has put some stipulations, all of us have put stipulations, but one thing we try to do is get the developers to put some money in the, as far as improvement in intersections, roads, roundabouts. As the lady said, more green space. We're trying to get to this conservation subdivision and requiring them more green space, more buffers. I mean, and so far, most of them have agreed to it, but it's the big thing is with DOT, if they put a little money in and we put some money in and the developer puts money in, it's likely to get bumped up, as Dave said, on the list. Myself and Dave, we've met with them also. Billy's met with them. I met with them just for keeping this place clean. I tell them we're the redheaded stepchild on 400. You go south and the grass is picked up. I mean, the trash, it's well manicured. And so we basically told them if they can't do it, tell us what you're paying to get it done, and we might do it ourselves if you give us the money. That's what we asked them last time. And they're getting us a map on how much they cut in Dawson County, and because they don't cut off 53, they come to the intersection. That's their road, but they put that intersection at Lufkin Campground, and the grass is growing through the sidewalks and around the poles and everything else. So we met with them and said, give us a map of what all y'all cut, how much you spend for it, and give us the money. We'll do it ourselves.
That's creative. Thank you.
And
I like that.
so we've met with them. We drove to Hall County or Gainesville one time and met with them. Then we just met with them a month ago. But their projects, as Dave said, is if we can get developers to put the money in to improve these intersections, and we're starting to put those stipulations on any kind of zone.
And one thing too, that, when we're talking about us having to put funds in with the state money, it doesn't always have to be us just handing cash. It can be in kind, and correct me if I'm wrong. We can agree to do the work and they pay for the aggregate or whatever to do that. And using our current road department, it's really not that big of a burden if we could add a turning lane here or add something, if we can get everybody on board to do that. So it might not be that big of a cost for us if we make an in-kind contribution for that as well. So.
And a perfect example of what could be a major improvement in that regard is the 53 Lumpkin Campground intersection. The state came in and did minimal improvements, but if you're eastbound on 53, there's no right turn lane. Now that'll slow you down. That's a key thing that could happen. So those are the wonderful partnership opportunities with us and the state, and it's good y'all are plugged into that. And our road department's great. I mean, there's a lot of things they can do.
Terry, you talked about going back to the survey. I know we sent it out to citizens. Did that survey go out to business owners too?
It was online, and let's see, Robbie.
It was online.
Stand up, Robbie, where we can hear you. Speak loud.
It was posted online, and the business owners were notified of it. Given the opportunity to take the survey. Tried to do that as many people as possible.
And I think the chamber promoted it on their chatter.
Did we get much response from the business owners?
Well, I don't know.
Nobody ever responds to these surveys.
Okay. Thank you.
In actuality, in some of the surveys that Dawson County has done in reference to our land use plan and other things like that, we've actually got better percentages than the bigger counties have
That's
gotten.
right. Yes,
Even
we
though if you
have.
look at that number, it's a very small number of actual people who live here. But if you're looking at it aggregately over the area, our citizens give us better response than some of the bigger counties get that have much more people and things. I mean, is it as good as we'd like to see? No,
Mhm.
but it's
We
the,
had good responses. I remember back in 2006, 2008.
it's the opportunity, you know, that we put out there for everybody to do. And it's on many forums for people to see it. It's all over our county website. It's all over a lot of the things that Miss Laura does for us, puts things out on Facebook and all the things that she has done extremely well since she came on board to provide information to our citizenry. So I think we're doing about all we can do to put it out there. You know, as it is, you can't make somebody fill it out, but I think, you know, we
They
can,
can fuss after it's
yeah,
done.
and it's like, you know, I tell people all the time when they come and they complain about a zoning issue, you cannot wait till it becomes a backdoor issue
That's right. That's
before you
right.
start your complaint process. You have to get in it when we're working on that. And that's the reason I talk about, you know, we do minimally has to do the comprehensive plan every 5 years, which includes the land use plan. That has to be done and updated. We do that more often than that here. So, you know, we look constantly for resident input from our citizens when we're doing that. And as you saw and as you made, you know, there's always public comment at every one of our meetings, 2 opportunities actually at most of our meetings for public comment. So, you know, encourage your neighbors to be part of that. One of the things that I think this board has done a really good job on is improve the communication throughout this entire county. And I'll give Laura 99.9% of that credit for the job she's done and working on that for us and getting it out there. And so, so we'll try to keep that up as we try to look for ways to handle all these issues that come up on a everyday basis.
And we are here to represent the people. And in my opinion, we're not here to dictate things, but I can't represent people if they don't contact
Communicate.
me. I get a lot of calls. I mean, I'll give people credit. I get a lot of calls and I appreciate every one of them because I'm not a mind reader and I don't have a crystal ball, but we are representatives of what the people want. And they need to talk to us. They need to talk to us. I have one question about transportation. Where are we on T-Splosh? I haven't heard anything about it since it was defeated.
Well, we got to get back together, have some more meetings with the city again and reference, try to figure out a date that we can go forward with that. We've got to be at least 90 days ahead of whichever voting time that the board would like to place that on for the citizens to do. So we got some work to do on that, but it's something other that hopefully we can work on
Let me
moving
ask you a
forward.
question, Chairman, because I know there are parameters that you have to operate under relating to promoting the T-Splosh and in your representative roles. Now, I think public education is going to be what will give us a successful result on T-Splosh. And I know I've done a couple of long-range planning talks with groups, you know, like a homeowners group or a club. And the thing that on transportation and the need for funding for that transportation. And I think the thing that jumps off the page with people and the light clicks on is when you show them a map of our county and you highlight, as we have done with that map, what the state is responsible for and what the roads that we are going to have to not only maintain, but improve and expand.
And the city.
And the
The
city.
city has.
It's part of it, yeah.
Mhm.
So I don't know how we can, as citizens who support the T-Splosh, how we can perhaps help participate in that public education process so that.
Well, I think, like you said, though, that what some of the things you did there is exactly what we want people to do. Speak to homeowners associations and different groups where they have the ear of 40, 50, 60, 70, 100 people. That's their opportunity to explain the nuances of what we're trying to accomplish. Now, as a total group here, we cannot go, say that, but, as I speak individually, I can shoot out the facts that are associated with that. And if you ever listen to me speak at any place, I do try to throw those facts out there so people have a full understanding of that. And then, the chambers helped us with that. They've been our lead agency on some of these things like Splosh and T-Splosh, and hopefully they'll be that way again as we move forward. But yeah, every single person can speak to that to help with it, because you have groups that speak the other way.
Sure.
So,
There's a lot of misinformation out there.
It's
that
all
these
about-
guys, I've
yeah.
never seen anything like it.
yeah, it's all about communication and doing the best we can to communicate the true facts that are associated with it.
And will it be a standalone referendum? In other words, will there be anything else on the ballot?
We'll have
or
to see
We have to wait and see.
when we can put it up. We'll have to see that.
Okay, just a summary of what we have done, and I think we've covered that pretty well on the document reviews we've done. One of the things that this nice lady commented on relating to the environment and conservation. We hear a lot from people, as you all hear majorly a lot, the concern for the disappearance of some of our green special places in the county, and they're concerned that they're just all going to get gobbled up. So we thought it would be an effort worthy of more attention to begin to identify some of those places where folks that have lived here for generations, they know where they can go swimming in the summer, and they want to be able to keep going to Devil's Elbow or whatever the place may be. And our committee would like to sort of look at that and see how we can maybe roll into some of our documents, some good stuff. So that's.
Yes, come on up to the mic.
One of the things that I think you have seen is a greenway plan.
Mhm.
And that sort of links on talking about what Gary said about the forestry areas and the state-owned areas, and linking those in so you have a greenway. You've also got a blueway. You've got the Etowah River that crosses in the other direction. And there is already an Etowah River Trail that is in the other counties, particularly further south of us. And that is a big economic generator. Not only is it preserving the river and the riverway, it's also providing economic growth for outfitters and all sorts of other businesses. If you go to Bartow County in the summer, you won't see many cars without kayaks or canoes on the top. So that's something to consider. It's not just, preserving the land and doing nothing with it. It's conserving it and using it as an economic bonus to us, as well as a bonus in an environment and the habitat. So I would like to promote both the greenway and a blueway, and that would go all the way up into Lumpkin County, where the source of the Etowah is. Thank you.
Thank you.
Pretty quickly here, it's going well. Staffing. I know just from our observations over the years, we went from not much of any growth to a very escalated growth in our county. And when you do that, the demands on growth management staffing need to be beefed up. And I saw in the budget where there is a request for some additional staffing in those areas. And our committee is a strong proponent of that, because when these projects come in, y'all can put all your little stipulations in there, but if there's no one on site to make sure, that those things happen,
Enforcement.
yes,
Enforcement,
then we we don't get what we want.
I think we've got a lot better on that, don't y'all?
Yeah, and we've got,
Enforcing these stipulations, because we talked about, why are we gonna say all this and if nobody's ever gonna follow up on it? So I think I think we've improved a lot on that.
and we're looking to do even more on that in this coming budget as well.
Yes.
Wonderful.
Mhm.
Great news. Great news. Thank you. We've covered under communication, we've covered the round top idea in the neighboring counties. And so I think that will be a very productive effort going forward. And then one of our members, Cal Miller, made a brilliant observation that, we sit in our meetings and we try to gain as much information as we can on other boards, advisory boards, and things going on in the county. So we're not operating in a vacuum. And I want to let him address that a little bit. I know he's done some work with Laura on that, but we want to get a little more acquainted with the development authorities' goals. And they just, for the first time in our county, we have an economic development strategy, which is something that has long been needed, but it's kind of a well-kept secret. Now, did you all have to sign off on that, or did they just do it and that's what they recommend, and you all didn't have a formal endorsement of it, or where is that?
What do you
The
mean?
Development Authority Economic Development Strategy. They have a document
Well,
that
I
they've
don't
put
think
together.
we've signed off on it.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
They presented.
yeah, they try to keep us informed,
Uh-huh.
Yeah, they come back
they
quarterly.
come here.
Yeah,
Updates.
Yes.
yeah.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, anything like that that we can get out for the public to see. I mean, just like the survey we did, about the, housing and different things like that, all that information is all public record. We want everybody to see as much of that as possible. And then, Laura puts all those documents online for people to see. We just got to figure out a way to get them to read them and to understand them.
One of the things that in our meeting, we thought we recommended to Mandy would be that perhaps the Development Authority had a kind of like an open house event where they actually invited the public, the Rotary and all, the different folks who do bother to stay current and present it. So that, because I'm not sure people know that the document exists or what's in it. And if we have some shared goals in there, it's worthy of working together on it. So that was just a comment.
Definitely.
I'd hope we'd be on the same page, wouldn't you?
I would, of course, we know that we're looking for, higher tech, better paying jobs. We've got medical that we're hoping to promote. But as the gentleman told me the other day, Carol Turner, when I talked to him, he says those incubators for promoting, like they did in Hall County, the medical community, attracting the medical community here. Those are expensive endeavors, and there's upfront money involved. And so if as a county, that's what we want, right, it may be something worthy of everyone being on the same page for.
And I think I know me and Billy met one day with them. Somebody was interested in coming in here, and we said the same thing, talking about medical campus, where you have, we hear that people want specialty doctors. They don't want to ride to Gainesville. They don't want to ride to Atlanta. And I think that's what we recommended the gentleman. That's one good thing that he needs to look at as far as a medical campus, medical offices, and high-tech jobs.
Oh, yeah.
So that's, yeah, we are looking at that, and we everybody that comes and wants to build, we tell them, this is what you need. We can't tell them what to build, but we tell them what the need is, especially if that hospital ever gets on board.
Oh, that's
I
gonna
mean,
be
they'll be
wonderful.
sending somebody to a specialist. We want them to send them here, not to Gainesville or Atlanta.
Well, Cal, did you want to comment any further on the idea of the loop of communication?
Sure, thank you. I won't take too long here, but some of you have already touched on the broad issue that I believe our committee has tried to address going back about 18 months ago. And as someone mentioned earlier, it's communication, communication and more. And I kind of think our committee looks at itself now more as the spoke in the wheel. And because we've been tasked with long-range planning, so we can't really do anything. We can't build anything. We can make recommendations. And one of the biggest challenges that we've seen, and I think we're excited about overcoming this, is the long-term, no 2-minute drill of enhancing the intercommunications between all the different entities that serve this county. I mean, it starts with you folks, but you have, you know, the Development Authority, the Planning Zoning Commission, you have us, you have the chamber, you have the actual county, and we've got some really good people that are there. Laura was nice enough to offer to help us. We're putting together a draft of some kind of visible connectivity document, I guess you'd call it, that helps people see this committee's working on this. Well, why aren't they involved in that? Well, they can't because this has to happen A, B, and C. But it's amazing to me, and as Gary referenced Cobb County, I was very involved in all that malarkey, good, bad, indifferent. Unfortunately, most of it bad when I was involved. And a lot of it was just a lack of communication, misunderstanding, not knowing who's doing what, who's on first, and groups not willing to get together and say, well, look, we're going to be meeting on this next month. Do you guys have any input or thoughts about that? And it's just simple communications. And I think one of the biggest points that we want to get across is our role is to enhance that, and we want to perpetuate that. But we need some meeting of the minds with a few of these other groups that will agree to share. If we say, hey, we're doing this, this, and this, we kind of hope that they're going to come back in kind instead of holding what they're working on close to the vest. So understand there's politics and some egos involved, but we're trying to get beyond that for the betterment of the county. And I think we've made some great strides. We've got good folks. You guys are very receptive. And we just like to kind of keep that going, and that it doesn't just end here and show up as a bullet point in your minutes from the meeting. So we're going to keep churning what we're doing. We're going to continue to ask for input from you and the other groups, but that's sort of the direction that we'd like to take. And with Laura's help, I think a visual document that might be shared initially just by you folks and these other standing committees would kind of help get some folks to understand, well, we're not at loggerheads, we're working together. And let's just share the information. And to your point, Billy, just get the information out. You got to just keep chipping away. It's not a one shot does it all. So thank you.
Yeah.
Uh,
Go ahead.
Since we talked about the Development Authority, like quarterly, is that something we could do as far as invite all those committees to come and do a quarterly
Yeah.
update at the same time?
Mhm.
So we can get that, you know, each group come. Dave, is that something y'all's office could work on as far as getting in touch with those? And when they do their quarterly meeting, let's get all the groups here at the same time doing it. It might be a long meeting, but you know, we've been in long meetings before.
We've been
But-
here to light.
But this will be a positive long meeting, not a
Yes.
not a long meeting where we're hearing a lot of people complain.
I mean, I think just everyone in the same room hearing the economic development strategy would
Yes.
go a long way to maybe saying, yeah, that's a great idea. That's something that, you know, we can, as a county, promote and advance.
It's like networking, and they're gonna hear something and say, hey, yeah, we ought to be working on the same thing.
Yeah.
And you know, y'all might hear something from that other group.
Well,
I guess my question would be is that if they're coming before the commission and giving a report, there's no interaction like this to where, you know, they can agree on something and then as a group come to the board and say, this is what we were working on, this is what we agreed on. And also I throw this out for discussion as to whether or not we would want to start out with maybe a quarterly joint meeting between the committees to come together and then come before the board, say, you know, a time frame after that, like 45 days or 30 days after that, just, or on the next work session, have the groups come in and then explain to the board, you know, what, you know. what
You know, even if
was
we got to
discussed.
the
Is that
point,
something that,
even if we got to the point where we had subgroups of each of the committees, in other words, 3 people from the Long Range Planning Committee, 3 people from the Chamber, 3 people from the Development Authority, all getting together and discussing all the same issues. And then they could take that back and everybody get on the same page and then bring that as a joint thing to the board, you know, at a meeting for people to hear. And so, you know, maybe we work towards that. Maybe we work towards trying to subcommittee and get, you know, dates set up for all those people to get in the same room and to discuss the topics that are near to all of us. Gary?
this exchange that you're talking about, I think you're gonna have to limit it to some sort of number or it'll
Yeah.
be just a big
Yeah.
food fight of people. But the people that you need to consider in this are not just the government folks
Right.
that you've mentioned, but Etowah Water and Sewer, for example,
Yeah.
or the Chamber. And
Just get,
and other
subgroup
folks.
of all those.
And then I would call it just what's happening.
Yeah.
Just, a discussion of what are you guys working on would go a long way to try to decide what do we need delivered back to you folks and says, okay, here are the big issues that these different groups are working on. So,
I mean, like the
Great
gentleman said, that, y'all are one spoke, but if we're not all the same length of spoke, the wheels running crooked and bouncing around. So that's a good point. We get all the spokes the same length.
so
It's amazing what I worked for what I consider to be one of the most, just a person that I've always admired in business. And it was a hospital. And his ability to put people all in the same room at the same time. And when they left that room, no one had any questions about where we were headed, what direction we were going in. And the amount of success in what we achieved was amazing. So we have so much here to protect. I use the word protect because I think we all treasure what we have here, and it can happen in a good way. It really can.
Oh, yeah. And so I guess I would task you with this. Let's
Okay.
get David a list of those subgroups
the groups that.
so that we all need that, so that maybe he can make those contacts and we see if we can't set up like, we don't need 100 people in a room,
No.
but we can get a group of each subgroup of each one of these committees and boards and stuff that we have together and, work from there and talk about the issues and things like that. And, try to get everybody working off the same sheet of music.
That would be good. What a tune we could play.
Yeah. All right.
Okay, and I think really we wanted to keep it short, and we could be here all day, but I know you all really don't want to be here all day. So if there's anything else that you all, after some thought, want to bring back to us, just please let us know, and we appreciate the time you gave us here today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, I
Thank you, everybody,
appreciate what
for
y'all
y'all's
do.
work.
Yeah, I mean, I want to say a special thank you to all of y'all for
Mhm.
being willing to be a part of the Long Range Planning Committee. It was a goal of mine when I ran for this office over 5 years ago, that we would put together a committee that would look to the future and that, we wouldn't be trying to chase the dog's tail, as they say, that we'd be ahead of that, and hopefully we can continue to do that. So I appreciate all the work that you've done, all the work you're going to do. And as we try to expand this into making it even a greater opportunity for everybody to work together, I see that as a positive for every citizen that lives here and for everyone that may come here, as Gary said, in the future, because he's completely right. You can't put up a gate. You have to deal with what you've been given. And so we work towards that and try to keep it the best we possibly can. Anyone else on the board have any comments before we adjourn? Anyone else on the Long Range Planning Committee? Come on up here, Mr. Hugh. Come on, Hugh.
First of all, I have to comment to this board about appointing this committee to start with. A lot of good things for Dawson County here. And I like to think I'd make a little contribution every now and then. But I'm not the sharpest knife in the drawer. But I did good in life by going by my creator brought me in this world. Because he let me borrow his pickup, my first job at 75 cents an hour. And he said, son, good Lord, want me to work at night. He gave me eyeballs seeing the dark, but just take that truck anytime you want it. So I come back in, I said, boy, this guy's doing this. I want to do that. He kept looking at me and says, you want to copy him? Yeah. What makes you think you're so good to copy him anyway? Have we gotten so good we can't copy somebody else? So I want to answer as to how Forsyth County got all these turning lanes on 53 off Eric County Road, right up to the Dawson County line. But Dawson County don't have one. They killed a bunch of citizens, a stupid passing lane that took me 10 years to get moved after I tried to kill 3 of my grandchildren and my daughter-in-law. These people heard that before, so I just repeated myself. Plus, you might not want to hear it. But the point is, Cleveland, I've been there lately. I've got a bypass to be thankful for. Okay. How to do it? I hear all these pros and cons and nickels and dimes and whatever, this got to do this, and the state does it, county does it, county can't do that, and blah, blah, blah. But how did they do it? Can we copy them? I bet they speak English. What do you think? I'm just throwing these things out, food for thought.
We can
I'm not
definitely
saying
try.
they'll work
That's for
or
sure.
whatever, but sometimes it's better if you think outside the box.
Exactly.
Okay? And I'm not saying if what you're doing is wrong, I'm just saying, don't look over everything. The same way with the guy I talked to 2 or 3 times about some of the obvious unsafe things in Dawson County. And I just think we're blessed not to have lost somebody, and hopefully not a high school kid, at the intersection of Thompson Road and New Stowers Road. There's a high bank there and a power line sitting on it. Georgia Power come through and put their lines on top of Sony Electric. I talked to both of them. Need to take that bank down there and move that pole back and everything. Do it cost free as far as the land's concerned, blah, 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 blah. You see it got done, don't you? It's still a blind corner. These kids that come up from the river, they don't touch a brake. I'm going back east and west most of the time. They're going north and south. You wouldn't believe the times I've had to slam on my brakes and let them miss me by 4 or 5 feet because they hadn't touched the brake. So it's just things like that I want you to be thinking about to make us progress on ahead of where we are now. If there's anything I can run out my mouth that will help you by 2 cents worth, then I'm thankful for that. And that's all I'll try to contribute. That's about all I'm capable of. But if we need to sit down with these elected officials in the state, I think we'll sit down with them, you know, and I don't know what and how to fix a lot of these problems. They're way over my head. But I know if we get some of these small projects fixed and we get a reputation of doing the right thing to the people and to them in Atlanta too, we'll win it. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Anyone else before we adjourn? Come here just a minute. Come on up here.
Something that Mr. Satterfield made me think of when you were talking about the maintenance, something about
Mhm.
doing maintaining.
Uh-huh.
You know, we used to have programs, work programs for our safer people that are in jail and inmates. And that's free labor. So I don't know why that became stopped, but we might try and revisit some type of program like that.
Reach out to your
We-
sheriff. You said
yeah,
you
we-
probably-
we've been
We've
down that
asked and
road.
asked, and I've asked for state inmates.
It makes
I've
no
asked-
sense. They're paying their dues to us. We're feeding them, housing them. I believe that they should be made to go out there. Those
You
that
need to talk to.
I will.
I've asked this
And
2
what-
weeks ago, I asked, so.
This is
Well,
not
I will
new.
follow up and I will, because I want him to seriously read that brochure on CSPOA. I think it would be a win for everybody if we could get Sheriff Richard Mack here to do a law enforcement seminar. And like we were saying, invite Pickens, the whole North Georgia area. And then the other quick thing, and then I'm done, and I thank you all so much for your time. On the developing end of things, builders, there's also a builder, there was an article about him over in Jasper. I had his card, but I gave it to an architect. I can't find my notes on who he was, but builders that are putting like off-grid, he was building all off-grid type homes with solar, you know, and we wanted to actually meet him and find out exactly what he was doing. But that is another smart thing for us to be forward-looking when we have homes being built, incorporated with solar. Anything we can to help us be independent and off the grid. And seriously, for times that we may have coming down the pike, you know, I think it would be, you know, the more independent and autonomous everybody can be in their day-to-day life, I think it's a win. So again, it's been a pleasure to speak for y'all today, and I've been enjoying
Well,
being.
thank you
part
for
of this.
coming and giving us your insight. We appreciate that.
Yes, and your
Mhm.
passion and your interest in this county.
And David, you wanted to address that a little bit?
I just wanted to mention that we do have a work program that is basically those that may have to do some community service. That we have 2 programs. One that is we receive them during the week, and then those that may have jobs. Judge Deal had put together a program, y'all may remember, where they are on weekend, and we have somebody that comes in. We have a transportation bus and stuff that they go out and pick up trash. But other than that, we have very minimal inmate labor. We typically have it at the transfer station. They've seen that when you come out, but we do have some form of work program.
But you're right, we would like to see that expanded. So you're right. So you can help us with that. You talk to the sheriff about it as well.
Yes.
All right. Anyone else before we adjourn? Once again, let me say thank you to everyone who came, everyone who participated, everyone who's listening to us online. And with that, we will be adjourned. Thank you.